I knew something was wrong the moment I walked through the door. Claire was sitting on the couch, still in her work clothes, hands wrapped around a cold cup of tea she hadn't touched. She didn't look up when I came in. 6 years of marriage teaches you things. It teaches you the sound of silence that means nothing, and the sound of silence that means everything. This was the second kind. Claire, I set my keys on the table. You okay? She flinched at my voice like I'd shouted. Daniel, sit down. I just walked in. Let me at least take my boots off. Please. Sit down. Something in her tone made my stomach drop before she said another word. I sat across from her, close enough to reach out, far enough that it felt wrong too. You're scaring me, I said. Claire finally looked up. Her eyes were red, swollen, like she'd been crying for hours before I got home. I don't know how to say this. Just say it. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out. She laughed, but it wasn't a real laugh. It cracked halfway through and turned into something closer to a sob. You always say that. We'll figure it out. Like there's nothing we can't fix together. Because there isn't. There is this time. The room felt smaller suddenly. I noticed the untouched tea, the tissue crumpled in her fist, the way her other hand kept pressing flat against her stomach like she was holding something in. Claire, what's going on? I'm pregnant. For half a second, pure joy hit me, fast and stupid, before I even processed the look on her face. We'd talked about kids. We'd tried, quietly, for almost a year. This should have been the best moment of my life. But Claire wasn't smiling. Claire was falling apart in front of me. I started, and then stopped, because her expression told me I was about to say the wrong thing. Claire, why do you look like that's bad news? Because it's not yours. 3 words. That's all it took to take everything I thought I knew about my life and turn it to ash. What? The baby. It's not yours, Daniel. Her voice broke on my name. It's Marcus's. I sat there, frozen, waiting for her to laugh, to tell me it was a joke, a test, anything. She didn't. She just kept crying, quieter now, like the confession had drained something out of her. Marcus, I repeated. Your ex Marcus. Yes. When? 7 months ago. Maybe 8. My mind went straight to that stretch of time. The fights, the silence between us, the nights I worked late and came home to an empty apartment because Claire said she needed space. I remembered thinking we were just going through something hard. Every couple does. We were barely speaking to each other back then. Claire said, like she could read my thoughts. I felt so alone, Daniel. You were always at work, and I ran into Marcus by accident. It wasn't planned. It wasn't supposed to happen again. Again. My voice came out sharp. How many times? 3. Maybe 4. I don't. I lost count because I hated myself so much I stopped keeping track. I stood up. I needed to move, to put distance between us, because if I stayed sitting there I didn't know what I'd do with my hands, my voice, any of it. 6 years, I said. 6 years, Claire. I know. I trusted you with everything. I know. Daniel, I know, and I hate myself for it every single day since it happened. I ended it with him. I ended it the moment I realized what I was doing. But I didn't know I was pregnant until 3 months ago, and I didn't know how to tell you. And every day I didn't tell you made it worse, and I'm so sorry. Stop. I held up a hand. Just stop talking for a second. She stopped. The apartment went silent except for her breathing, uneven and shaky. I thought about walking out. I thought about every version of this moment where I grabbed my jacket and never came back. But some stubborn, wounded part of me needed to hear the rest, needed to understand how deep this went before I decided anything. Does Marcus know? I asked. Yes. And Claire's face crumpled. He doesn't want anything to do with it. He told me to handle it myself. He said a baby wasn't part of his plan. So he gets to walk away clean. Daniel, please. She stood up now too, closing the distance I'd put between us, her hands reaching for mine before I pulled back. I know I have no right to ask you anything. I know what I did. But I'm asking you anyway, because I don't have anyone else. And because despite everything, I still love you more than I've ever loved anyone. Claire. Stay, she said, voice breaking completely now. Please stay. Raise this baby with me. As yours. I know it's not fair to ask. I know I destroyed something I can't fully fix. But this baby didn't do anything wrong, and neither did you, and I can't do this alone. I looked at her. Really looked at her, at the woman I married, at the wreckage of everything I believed about us, and I didn't have an answer. Not yet. 3 days passed, and I still hadn't given Claire an answer. I moved through the apartment like a stranger in my own life. I slept on the couch. I ate cereal standing over the sink because sitting at the table with her felt impossible. Every time I looked at her, I saw Marcus's hands where mine should have been. At work, I nearly cut my thumb off on a table saw because my mind was somewhere else entirely. Daniel. Lisa Monroe grabbed my wrist before the blade got too close. What is wrong with you today? Nothing. Don't give me that. You've been walking around like a ghost for 3 days. She pulled off her safety glasses and studied me. Talk to me. I trusted Lisa more than almost anyone. 10 years of working construction together does that. So I told her everything. The pregnancy, Marcus, the affair, all of it spilling out of me in the break room while the rest of the crew ate lunch outside. Lisa didn't say anything for a long moment. Okay, she finally said. First, I'm sorry, Daniel. That's a gut punch. Yeah. Second, whatever you decide, don't decide it angry. You hear me? Anger makes everything feel clear when it isn't. She cheated on me for months, Lisa. Months. And now she wants me to raise the kid like nothing happened. I'm not saying forgive her. I'm saying don't make a permanent decision about a baby's whole life based on how furious you feel this week. Lisa leaned against the table. You have time. Use it. Talk to someone. Your dad, maybe. My dad and I don't talk. Maybe it's time you did. I hadn't seen my father in almost 2 years. Robert Reeves lived alone in the same small house I grew up in. The porch light always burning even when nobody was expected. When I showed up unannounced that evening, he didn't look surprised. He just stepped back and let me in like I'd been there yesterday. Something's wrong, Robert said, handing me a coffee I didn't ask for. You don't visit unless something's wrong. Claire's pregnant. His face lit up for a second, then faded when he saw mine. That's not good news, is it? It's not mine. Robert set his own cup down slowly. Whose is it? Her ex Marcus. She wants me to raise it anyway. Like it's mine. I expected my father to react. Anger, sympathy, something. Instead, he sat there quiet for a long time, staring at the table like he was somewhere else entirely. Dad, you know your brother David wasn't mine, Robert said. I stared at him. What? Your mother had David before we met. His biological father took off before he was even born. I raised him from the time he was 2 years old. Loved him like my own son. Everyone did. You did. You never even questioned it growing up. I didn't know. Nobody did. That was the point. Robert's voice grew heavier. I raised David for 9 years. And then things got hard between your mother and me. And when we split up, I let him go. Told myself it was easier that way, since he wasn't really mine. I convinced myself I owed him less because of blood. He looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Real regret. It was the worst decision of my life, Daniel. David wrote me letters for 2 years asking why I stopped calling. I never answered. He stopped writing after that. Where is he now? I don't know. Haven't spoken to him in 20 years. Robert's hands trembled slightly around his cup. I tell myself all the time that blood doesn't make a father. Love does. Showing up does. But I only believe it now, when it's too late to fix what I broke. I sat with that for a long time. I'm not telling you what to do, Robert said. I'm telling you what happens if you walk away from a child because of what someone else did. The child doesn't disappear from your heart. Not really. You just spend the rest of your life wondering. I drove home that night with my father's words circling in my head. Claire was still awake when I walked in, sitting at the kitchen table, waiting like she had every night since her confession. Daniel, I'll stay, I said. I'll raise the baby as mine. Relief flooded her face, but I wasn't finished. On one condition. Anything. Marcus is gone. Completely. No calls, no messages, no coffee to catch up, nothing. If I ever find out you spoke to him again, I walk, and I take everything I've given this family with me. No warnings. No second chances. Claire's eyes filled with tears. I promise you, Daniel. I swear it. He's gone. I'll never speak to him again. I need to believe that. You can, she whispered. I swear you can. I wanted to believe her. I needed to. But somewhere underneath the relief, a small, cold voice reminded me that she'd sworn things to me before. The doctor's office became familiar territory over the next few months. I sat beside Claire at every appointment, watching grainy black and white images on a screen that meant nothing to me at first and everything to me by the 5th visit. There's the heartbeat, the doctor said one afternoon, pointing at a flickering line. strong and steady. I stared at that screen longer than I meant to. Something shifted in me, quiet and unexpected. I didn't decide to love this baby. It just started happening, one appointment at a time, whether I gave myself permission or not. "You okay?" Claire asked in the car afterward. "Yeah," I said, surprised to find I meant it. "Yeah, I'm okay." Grace Whitfield never made things easier. Claire's mother had a way of talking to me like I was a child who needed correcting. "You're still sleeping on the couch?" Grace asked one Sunday, arms crossed in our kitchen while Claire napped upstairs. "Daniel, she's carrying a baby. She needs her husband beside her, not sulking on cushions." "Grace, I'm doing the best I can. Forgive and forget. That's what family does." "My Claire made a mistake, but she's trying, and you're still punishing her for it every single day." "I'm not punishing her. I'm here, aren't I? I go to every appointment. I'm building a nursery. I said I'd raise this baby. Then act like it's settled in your heart, not just your schedule." I bit back my anger. Grace didn't know what it cost me to walk through that door every night and smile at Claire like the ground beneath us hadn't cracked wide open. She saw the surface. She didn't see the version of me that lay awake at 2 a.m. replaying Marcus's name in my head like a wound that wouldn't close. "I'm trying, Grace," I said quietly. "That's all I've got right now." It was a Tuesday evening when I found the message. Claire had left her phone on the counter while she showered, and it lit up with a notification. I wasn't trying to snoop. I just glanced at the screen the way anyone glances at a phone that buzzes nearby. Asterisk Marcus, "Hey, just checking in. Hope you're doing okay. Thinking about you and the baby." Asterisk. My chest went tight. I stood there staring at those words until the screen went dark on its own. When Claire came out of the bathroom, I was sitting on the edge of the bed, her phone in my hand. "Daniel, Marcus texted you." Her face drained of color. I didn't answer him. I swear. "Daniel, I haven't spoken a word to him. He's checking in. On you. On the baby." My voice shook despite my effort to keep it level. "You told me he wanted nothing to do with any of this." "He doesn't. He's just..." Claire grabbed the phone from my hand, fingers trembling as she opened the message and deleted it right in front of me. "There. Gone. I didn't ask for this, Daniel. I didn't invite it. But you didn't tell me either. I was going to. I just found out an hour before you got home. I hadn't figured out how to." "That's the problem, Claire. There's always a reason you hadn't figured out how to tell me yet." I stood up, putting distance between us the way I always seem to need now. "I gave you one condition. One. And I find out about this by accident." I didn't respond to him. I didn't reach out. "What more do you want from me?" "I want to trust you," I said, quieter now, some of the fight draining out of me. "But you keep making that harder." Claire's eyes filled with tears. "I will block his number tonight. I will do anything, Daniel, please. I made one mistake 7 months ago, and I am spending every single day trying to make it right. Please don't give up on us over a text message I didn't even answer." I looked at her, swollen with the baby, standing in front of me shaking with fear of losing everything. Some part of me still loved her. That was the hardest part of all of this. Love didn't disappear just because trust did. "Block him," I said. "Tonight. I want to see you do it." She did. Right there, hands shaking as she pulled up his contact and hit block before showing me the screen like evidence in a trial. "Okay," I said. "Okay." But something inside me had shifted permanently. Trust, once cracked, doesn't fully close again. It just gets watched more carefully. 3 weeks later, at 4 a.m., Claire shook me awake. Daniel, it's time." The next several hours blurred into fluorescent lights, Claire's hand crushing mine through contractions, nurses moving with practiced calm, while my heart hammered too fast to think straight. "You're doing great," I kept telling her, though I had no idea if it was true. "You're doing so great, Claire." And then, after one final push, a sound cut through the room that changed everything. A thin, furious cry announcing itself to the world. "It's a boy," the doctor said, lifting him up. They placed him on Claire's chest first, then, a few minutes later, into my arms. I looked down at his tiny, scrunched-up face, his fingers curling instinctively around mine, and every ounce of doubt I'd carried for months disappeared in an instant. "Ethan," Claire whispered, watching us both. "Ethan Reeves." I didn't correct the last name. I didn't even think about it. Looking at that small, impossible face, I understood something my father had tried to tell me weeks earlier. Blood didn't make this real. This moment did. Ethan was 6 months old when I realized I couldn't imagine my life without him. He had a laugh that came from nowhere, sudden and full-bodied. Usually when I made the stupidest faces trying to get him to eat his vegetables. I got up for every 3 a.m. feeding I could manage. I learned the exact bounce that stopped his crying, the specific way he liked to be held facing outward so he could see the room. "You're a natural," Claire told me one night, watching me get him to sleep in under 5 minutes. "He loves you so much, Daniel." "He's my son," I said, and for the first time, the words came out without hesitation. I believed we were finally finding solid ground. Then Marcus showed up at our door. It was a Saturday afternoon. Claire was in the kitchen, Ethan napping upstairs, when the doorbell rang. I opened it expecting a delivery. Marcus Bellamy stood on our porch in a wrinkled shirt, looking nothing like the confident man Claire had described from years ago. His eyes were tired. His hands shook slightly when he shoved them into his pockets. "Daniel," Marcus said, like we were old acquaintances. "I need to talk to Claire. You need to leave. Please. Just 5 minutes." Claire appeared behind me, and I watched her face carefully, the way you watch weather before a storm. Shock, yes. But something else too. A flicker of hesitation that lasted half a second too long. "Marcus," Claire said, "you can't be here. I know I shouldn't have come. But my marriage fell apart 3 months ago, my business is bleeding money, and I keep thinking about him. About Ethan. I want to know my son, Claire." "He's not your concern," I said, stepping slightly in front of Claire without fully meaning to. "You made that clear before he was even born. Things were different then." I panicked. I was scared, and I said things I regret. "You don't get to regret this now that it's convenient," I said. "You don't get to show up because your life fell apart and you need something to hold on to." "Daniel," Claire's voice was quiet. Too quiet. Maybe we should just hear him out. I turned and looked at her, and something inside me cracked wide open again, exactly the way it had the night she confessed everything. Because in that half-second of hesitation, I saw the truth. Some part of her had never fully closed the door on Marcus. Not completely. "Hear him out," I repeated. "Claire, you promised me. No contact, no exceptions. I'm not saying let him in the house. I'm saying he's clearly struggling, and he's Ethan's biological. I don't care what he is biologically." My voice rose despite myself. "I'm not doing this on my own front porch." Marcus held up his hands. "I'll go. I just needed to try. I'm sorry, Daniel." "Claire, I'm sorry." He left, and Claire closed the door, but the silence between us afterward said more than any argument could have. "You hesitated," I said. "I was shocked, Daniel. That's all that was. You said, maybe we should hear him out. Because he's clearly falling apart, and I felt sorry for him. That doesn't mean I want him back in my life. But it means you weren't ready to shut the door completely. Not the way I needed you to be." Claire didn't have an answer for that. Neither of us did. "You look exhausted," Lisa said the following Monday, handing me coffee before our shift started. I told her about Marcus showing up, about Claire's hesitation, about the cold, familiar feeling of watching betrayal happen in real time instead of hearing about it after the fact. "Daniel, listen to me." Lisa's voice was firm. "You gave that woman a condition. You gave her a real chance to prove herself. You are allowed to protect yourself here. You don't owe her infinite patience just because you love the baby. I don't know what protecting myself even looks like anymore. It looks like making sure you and Ethan are safe no matter what happens with your marriage. Update your documents. Establish paternity rights properly, even if it's not biological. There are legal ways to secure that as his father. Save money quietly, just in case. Not because you want to leave. Because you need options if things fall apart. That feels like giving up on us." "No," Lisa said. "It feels like finally putting yourself and that little boy first, instead of just enduring whatever happens next." That week, I met with a lawyer during my lunch break and started the paperwork for legal paternity rights over Ethan, protecting my place in his life no matter what happened between Claire and me. I opened a separate savings account, small deposits every payday, quiet and steady. I didn't tell Claire. I told myself it wasn't betrayal. It was survival, the same lesson my father had learned 20 years too late. Love the child unconditionally, but protect yourself with open eyes, because love alone hadn't been enough to keep my family whole the first time, and I wasn't willing to bet Ethan's entire future on hope a second time. Marcus didn't stop after that Saturday. Claire told me about the calls first, 3 in 1 week, then 5 the next. She showed me her phone unprompted this time, No hesitation, no secrets. I noticed that. I told myself it mattered. He says his business is gone, Claire said, scrolling through messages she hadn't answered. He lost everything, Daniel. He keeps saying he has no one left. That's not your problem. I know that. I'm just telling you what he's saying. Then Marcus showed up at Claire's work. She called me the second it happened, voice shaking. He was standing outside when I left for lunch. Daniel, he looked terrible. He said if I really loved him once, I'd give him a chance to be part of Ethan's life. He said family is all he has left. What did you say? I told him to leave. I told him this isn't about what he needs. I wanted to believe the worst was over. It wasn't. 2 weeks later, Marcus called Claire directly, and this time she put him on speaker in our kitchen, Ethan babbling in his high chair beside us, so I could hear everything myself. Claire, please, Marcus said, his voice raw and unraveling. I'm not trying to break up your family. I just need something to hold on to right now. Everyone left me. My wife left. My business is bankrupt. I have nothing. You're the only person who ever really knew me. Marcus, I'm sorry you're struggling. I mean that. But I can't fix this for you. You don't have to fix it. Just let me see him sometimes. Let me be something to Ethan. I gave him life too. Claire, doesn't that count for anything? Claire glanced at me, and for one terrible second, I thought I saw the old hesitation again. Then something shifted in her face, hard and certain. You didn't want him, Claire said, voice steady now. You told me to handle it myself, remember? You said a baby wasn't part of your plan. Now your plan fell apart, and suddenly you want to be a father. That's not fair. It's completely fair, Marcus. You don't love Ethan. You don't even know him. You're drowning, and you're looking for something to grab onto, and I refuse to let that something be my son. Claire. No. Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. I loved you once, a long time ago, and I made a terrible mistake because I was lonely and stupid. But I have a husband who shows up every single day for that baby in the high chair, and I have spent this entire year trying to become someone worthy of the family I almost destroyed. You are not going to undo that because your life fell apart. Don't call me again. She hung up. The kitchen went silent except for Ethan banging a spoon against his tray, oblivious to the storm that had just passed over his head. Claire, I started. I should have said that a long time ago, she said, tears finally falling now. I should have said that the very first time he texted me. I let myself feel sorry for him instead of seeing him clearly. I'm sorry, Daniel. I'm so sorry it took me this long. I believed her. That was the strange part. Watching her stand there, shaking but resolute, I believed every word. But belief and healing aren't the same thing. That night, after Ethan was asleep, Claire found me in the garage, standing over a box of paperwork I'd forgotten to hide. The paternity documents, the separate savings account statements, all of it spread across the workbench. What is this? Claire asked quietly. I didn't answer right away. There was no good way to explain a year of quiet preparation to leave. Daniel, is this a plan to walk out on us? It's protection, I said. For Ethan. Legal rights, in case anything ever happened between us. Money set aside, just in case. In case of what? In case I go back to him. In case anything, Claire. I couldn't keep loving you and Ethan with my whole heart, while also hoping nothing would ever fall apart again. I needed a plan for both possibilities. Claire sat down slowly on an overturned bucket, staring at the papers like they were a wound she hadn't expected. I finally end things with Marcus, completely, in front of you, and I find out you've spent a year preparing to leave anyway. I wasn't preparing to leave. I was preparing not to be blindsided again. How is that different from not trusting me at all? Because I do love you, I said, and my voice cracked on the words. I love Ethan more than I ever thought I could love anything. But love didn't protect me the first time, Claire. I built these walls because I didn't know how else to survive what you did to us. I'm trying so hard to fix this. I know you are. Then why does it feel like you've already decided we're broken? I didn't have an answer for her. That was the truth I hadn't said out loud, even to myself, until that exact moment. Somewhere over the past year, while Claire had been proving her loyalty one difficult day at a time, I had quietly built a fortress around my heart, brick by brick, appointment by appointment, betrayal by almost betrayal. And now, standing in that garage with the woman who had chosen us, fully and finally, over the man who'd once broken us apart, I realized I didn't know how to take those walls back down. Not yet. Maybe not ever completely. Healing didn't happen in one dramatic moment. It happened in small pieces, spread out over months, so gradual I almost missed it happening at all. Claire stopped hiding her phone screen, not because I asked, but because she wanted me to see there was nothing left to hide. I stopped checking. Not all at once. Trust doesn't work that way. But slowly, appointment by appointment, ordinary day by ordinary day, the walls I'd built in that garage started coming down brick by brick, the same way they'd gone up. "You seem lighter lately," Lisa said one afternoon at work, watching me help Ethan's photo fall out of my wallet when I reached for cash. "Yeah," I said, picking it up and looking at his gap-toothed grin. "I think I finally believe we're going to be okay." "Good," Lisa said. "You've earned that." I visited my father more often that year. Robert Reeves had softened somehow, or maybe I had, enough to let him back into my life the way I'd never let him back in after my parents split. "You look like a man who found his footing," Robert said one evening, watching me chase Ethan around his backyard. "Some days," I admitted, scooping Ethan up before he could face plant into the grass. "Some days I still think about everything that happened." "That never fully goes away," Robert said. "But it stops running your life eventually. It becomes something that happened to you instead of something that defines you." "How long did that take you?" "With David." My father's face fell, old grief resurfacing. "I never got there with David. That's the difference between us, Daniel. You stayed. You fought for that boy even when you had every reason to walk away. I ran. I told myself he wasn't really mine to fight for, and I let that lie cost me my son. You could still find him. Maybe." Robert watched Ethan giggle, chasing a ball across the grass. "I think about it every day now, watching you with him. You didn't just avoid my mistake, Daniel. You showed me what I should have done all those years ago. It's not too late for me to try reaching David, even now. Watching you gave me the courage I didn't have back then. I hope you find him, Dad." "Me too, son. Me too." Claire and I never had one big conversation that fixed everything. Instead, we had 100 small ones. Over dinner, during Ethan's bath time, in quiet moments after he'd fallen asleep. "I know I can't undo what I did," Claire said one night, nearly 2 years after her confession. "I know some part of you will probably always remember it, but I need you to know I see how much you've given us. I see it every single day, Daniel. I see you trying too," I said. "That matters more than you know. Do you think we're actually okay? Not just surviving." "Okay." I thought about that question honestly before answering. "I think we're building something real. Slower than I wanted. Harder than I expected. But real." Claire reached for my hand across the table, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't hesitate before taking it. Ethan turned 2 on a warm Saturday in June. We threw him a small backyard party. Lisa came, my father came. Even Grace came, quieter now, having finally seen how much I'd given her daughter and grandson without ever needing to be told twice. I was crouched by the sandbox, helping Ethan stack plastic blocks that kept toppling before he could finish, when he looked up at me with his little furrowed brow of concentration. "Higher," he said, pointing at the wobbling tower. "You want it higher?" I asked, adding another block carefully. "Like this?" "Yeah." He clapped his hands as it stayed standing, then reached up toward me, arms open the way he did when he wanted to be picked up. I lifted him onto my hip, and he pressed his small hand against my cheek, studying my face the way toddlers do when something in their mind is working itself out. "Dad," Ethan said, just like that, unprompted, unrehearsed, like the word had simply arrived in him and needed to come out. I froze completely, my chest tightening in a way I hadn't expected. "What did you say, buddy?" "Dad," Ethan said again, louder this time, delighted by my reaction, pressing his palm flat against my chest like he was claiming something that belonged to him. Across the yard, Claire's hand flew to her mouth, tears filling her eyes as she watched us. My father went quiet, watching too, something unreadable passing over his face. Maybe regret, maybe hope, maybe both at once. "Yeah," I said, voice thick, holding Ethan a little tighter. "That's right, buddy. I'm your dad." I thought about every appointment I'd sat through with a hollow feeling in my chest. Every night I'd spent on that couch, unsure if I could love a child that wasn't biologically mine. Every quiet paper I'd filed to protect myself against the possibility of losing everything again. None of that mattered anymore. Standing in that backyard with Ethan's small hand pressed against my chest, claiming me the way I had already claimed him, months before he ever understood what the word meant. Fatherhood was never about blood. My own father had taught me that lesson too late for himself, but just in time for me. It was about showing up, again and again, through doubt and fear and every reason to walk away. It was about choosing someone every single day, until that choice became so woven into who you are that it stops feeling like a choice at all. I looked at Claire, at my father, at the small boy in my arms calling me by a name I'd earned one difficult day at a time. Love given freely, even after betrayal, could still build something real. I was living proof of that now.